My father is and always has been a bit over the top. He does things that embarrass me and make me laugh, and I guess everyone has a father like this, but mine is. Let me tell you a story. A couple years ago, my father called me up asking if I could pick him up and take him into town. My father and mother are divorced, but he only lived about 10 minutes away. I asked him what he needed to get, and he said that he was in desperate need of clam chowder. Now, I didn't have a lot going on that day, unfortunately, so I told him that I'd be right over. Now, I don't have a problem with my father. I love him very much, and he's a great person, but he likes to drink. And he sounded very inebriated over the phone. And when he gets drunk, it's not fun taking him into town. But I head over there regardless. I get to his house and I knock on the door, but there's no answer. Half of me is telling me to check around back, and the other half is screaming to myself to just go home. But in spite of my better judgment, I go see if the back door's locked. I walk around the house and I see my father asleep in a lawn chair with a beer in his hand. He's very good at not dropping his alcohol when he sleeps, but he's a very heavy sleeper, especially when he's drunk. So I take the beer out of his hand and I start nudging him, all the while just telling myself to go home in my head. My father wakes up, turns, looks at me with a drunken gaze and says, "Barry! Hey, Barry! Are you gonna come get me?" Dad, I'm right here." "Oh." He looks down at the ground and says softly, "Are you gonna come get me?" I help him up and we go inside. I ask him if he's ready to go, and he says he needs to grab his water, grab a jacket, and grab a hat. Sounds simple, right? I waited for 32 minutes while he went to his closet, grabbed his coat, went to the freezer, grabbed his water, went back to the closet, put his coat back, went to the desk and grabbed his hat, went to the freezer and put the water back, then saw me and said, "Hang on, I need my jacket and water." He was so wasted, and this went on for almost 35 minutes. Now you may wonder, why didn't you help him? Because if I tried, he'd get angry. I grabbed the exact coat he had grabbed, and he told me that I grabbed the wrong one. And he said, "I'll get it." So I sat down and I waited. We get in the truck, and I said, "Okay, Dad, where do you want to go?" He replies with, "The south side of town." Wait, what? Why do you want to go all the way out there for clam chowder? There's a market right down the street. Is clam chowder cheaper over there or something? This is when he looks at me and says, "We aren't getting clam chowder." "We're not? What are we going into town for then?" "Marijuana." Now my father is disabled. He fell off a bridge almost 16 years ago and shattered 2 of his vertebrae, and even though he can still walk, he was told that he can never work again. He had recently gotten his medical marijuana card from his doctor, and for whatever reason, he thought that the only way he was going to be able to get me to take him into town was to lie, which didn't make any sense because I have nothing against marijuana. Now, I don't do it, but for some reason he thought that I hated it, and the whole trip into town, which took about 25 minutes from where he lived, all he did was apologize. "I'm sorry I fooled you. I know how much you hate marijuana, but I need it." And I kept saying that it was okay, and there was no issue. But it went on like this the entire time. Actually, no, that's not true. He did roll down the window a couple times to shout at a couple cops that they were pigs. And before you ask, no, he does this when he's sober too. The way he sees it, it was the cops' fault that he went to prison. Anyway, we get to the marijuana emporium, and he picks up his stuff. We drive back, and he's still apologizing, and finally, after 2 hours of my day lost to this adventure, we're back at his house. I tell him that I love him, and I will see him soon, and I drive back home. But that's not the best part. I get back home, and literally the second I step through the door, the phone rings. It's my father. Just ignore it. Pretend I'm not home yet, I think to myself. And the answering machine picks it up. My father says, "Hey, Barry, you gotta come back. You know what we forgot? The clam chowder." I love my family. They're ridiculous, but they leave me with great stories. Thanks for listening. Bye, guys.